PowerPoint ఎట్లా పోతుంది
Friends, good morning all of you. This is the first time of the community medicine. Our HOD Kiran garu came and other professors. Mohan, Narayana, now statistical assistant, statistical officer, Hanuman, everybody have come. Of course, this is the first experience. When I was working as an administrator, I participated in Skype conversation with principal secretary, health minister, and sometimes chief minister also. But this is the first experience for us because we are not able to see your faces directly. We cannot a sort of eye-to-eye contact is not there. If it is there, you know, usually in our classes will be very comfortable and you will be very confident. Okay. Nevertheless, this is a method which has been devised in webcasting. Somehow we will be able to reach you and try to teach you and complete the course before the examinations. Today, we are starting with demography and family planning. The entire chapter was allotted by our HOD, myself and Dr. Kailash will be teaching you in the coming 2 weeks because other members were posted otherwise by the government. We are only available in our departments. That's why most of the teaching will go by both of us. First of all, demography and family planning. It is nothing but scientific study of population and how the community medicine came into this picture. You will be able to understand within a short time. Scientific study of human population in terms of number and their financial status and their spatial distribution. These things are very important for the administrator. Recently, we have a number of countries, United Nations countries, 193 countries are situated on this earth. One of the countries, biggest countries is India. So it is very important for the administrators and sociologists, social workers, where they can determine the density of the population and the composition of the population in terms of age, sex, occupation, financial status, etc. And the community medicine part is particularly the community health, because the distribution of community in respect of age, sex, economic status, then only our government will be able to devise certain programs, national health programs and nutrition programs, or many other programs which are useful to uplift in the field of health from the population. So this is really a very scientific subject for us, particularly doctors, because we must thoroughly understand the population structure, their socioeconomic status, their distribution on the space. These are very important. That's why the role of community medicine is very important in demography. As you know, the other departments may not know even the term demography. But as a community physician, as a primary healthcare physician, it's very important to have a concept and understand this particular subject. There is a process in this demography. For a long time, though the people do not observe, especially of the advent of this British, we understood that there is some demographic process is going on this planet in all the countries. That is, there are about 5 cycles. Through these cycles, every country and entire globe is passing through. The first stage is high stationary phase. That means the birth rate and death rate are almost equal and the population is stationary. This is what is called high stationary, because there is no much medical intervention to treat the patients and improve their life expectancy. And at the same time, there is no measures for us to control the fertility, and the result, the birth rate is same. So birth rate, death rate got nullified under the high stationary phase. For a period of time, there is early expanding stage. Early expanding stage in the sense, the birth rate, there is no change. Birth rate as such, there is no change. But because of little scientific advancement, and when people got settled in a good environment, slowly try to improve the health situation. So death rate is to some extent reduced. So there is span of life is increased. What we have to understand from this demographic process is, there is birth rate, there is a birth, there is a death. In between, there is life expectancy in years. So this is the manipulation. Only these 5 stages are nothing but manipulation of these cycles. They are directly expanding stage. We have gone through it, I think 3 to 4 decades ago. Our birth rate was very high, and after the advent of modern medicine, the life expectancy also, to an extent, is increased. You all know that in the 18th century, modern medicine was introduced. And the third stage is, you have late expanding. Late expanding stage is also almost the same, but only thing is the quality of medical care is a little bit improved, and even though there is no change in the birth rate, the life expectancy a little bit further improved. So this is what is called late expanding cycle. Then you have late expanding. Of course, we have gone through it. China has gone through it, and then most of the Southeast Asian countries have gone through this phase. In the fourth phase, we have low stationary, in the sense that the birth rate to a large extent it has been controlled, and the medicine has got so much advanced that the life expectancy is very much prolonged. And we have seen number of old age people are living, and then to some extent it is stationary, because on one side, by improving the modern medicine system, we have reduced the infant mortality rate, child mortality rate. And then on the other side, we have developed a geriatric medicine, where for non-communicable disease, a number of treatments and medicines are prescribed, and slowly the expectancy of life is increased. So there's, to some extent, it is stationary. And the last stage is declining stage. Declining stage in the sense, the birth rate is less than even the death rate. It's very strange to see in some of the countries, particularly in particularly in that Germany. Germany is the country where the birth rate is lower than the death rate. Because it's a small country, the high medical care, and of course we cannot think about it now. But what we should learn from this particular democratic process is there are some countries like China, they thought they were very intelligent, even in the European countries. They have controlled fertility and birth rate in such a way that at one time China has gone to zero population growth. That means totally stationary, replaced by we are two and we have two. That's all. Zero population growth. In the late phase, what happened was all the Western countries in China, there is a zero population growth, and also to some extent growth rate is reduced less than 1, from 0.6 to 0.9, like that. The disadvantage now they are facing is there are no young productive people in their country. Their average age, length of the age, average age at the present time in China is more than 40 years. In Western countries, it's more, even more than 55. But whereas in India, the average age is about less than 30 years. That's a great dividend, which we have got unknowingly, which is nature's help. Today, we have large number of productive youth, younger people. Of course, if we use them in a proper way, definitely we'll be able to produce and our socio-economic status will definitely improve and our GDP is. It is up to the government to make various programs to engage them without leaving them and utilize them. See, right now, our people, our young youth, most of them are trained in computer science. They are very much needed now. After the industrial revolution, we have this internet revolution. It's running in the 18th century. It was industrial revolution. We could not participate in the backward country in that particular period because of the British. But now in the internet revolution, it is the India which is playing a large part. And even though British had done a lot of mischief and loss to us, only thing is we could learn English from them. And we are the best English speaking country in the world when compared to other countries. May not be better than the British English born themselves. Because the internet, even till today, the gateway access in and gateway access out is English is an official language, and we are definitely having an edge. Or even China. China also, when compared to India, in the utilization of language English is much better when compared to other countries. So, in that way, the democratic process, which I just gave an example. When we come to the demography, is only study of a science of study of population in terms of number. In terms of number, but it was way back. It was estimated that in Christian era, in the year 1800, it was estimated to 1 billion. The entire world in the population. Okay, and India in 18th century, the population was 25 crores. And of course, the growth has gone leaps and bounds. And today, 2014 mid-year population estimation was 1.3 billion. 130 crores. And China is only 1.4 billion. We are just reaching China. And then our growth rate is more than 1% when compared to China. Still it is less than 1%, about 0.6%. And so, in the coming 5 or 10 years, it's sure that India will surpass, as far as the population is concerned, China, and it will become the #1 populous country in the entire world. That is about the population number and terms. And when we come to the population distribution, India is, there are only, though there are about, as on today, we have about 7 billion population, but the most populous countries is #1 China, about it is contributing for about 20% of the total world population, and India about 19% of the population. And you know, the United States of America contribute about 4%. And the rest of the 190 countries, 195 countries recognized by the United Nations, barring these 4 countries, the rest of the population is there in all these 190 odd countries. Small population, small areas. So we are basing on the population. We have many more needs when compared to other countries, because it is the responsibility of the government to see that proper environment is created for the subjects, that is for living a decent living, house is to be provided, some employment is to be provided. At the same time, they have to produce food, etc., sufficient for the people. So these are all the burdens on the country as far as the population is concerned. And that's why the 4 most populous countries, 4 or 3 most populous countries, always try to exchange our ideas, and we try to emulate other countries, something better than our own practices. What is the best practices available in other countries, we are just copying them. For that, we have to know about the spatial distribution and total number of population on the earth. In our own Southeast Asian region, Thailand, which is a small country, even though it is a developing country, they are far advanced. They are able to control their population and deliver the best services possible. Of course, we cannot compare it because it is a very small country. Population is just few millions compared to India. As you know, we are more than 1,000 million population. Definitely, there will be certain difficulties. That's why we always try to compare with China. China is the only country which is of magnitude and of equal status of India. That's why there's a lot of confrontation and competition between both these countries. So now, if you see the birth and death rates, as we have already seen, the demographic causes, the birth rates and death rates and growth rates. In the beginning, we have high birth rate and high death rate. Over a period of time, it was about 33%. In the early 90s, the crude birth rates were more than 33%, and death rate was 21%. Over a period of time, after the introduction of this modern medicine by the British, and slowly it started working, all the extension services in villages and towns. Of course, cities we have private services. You can afford is to visit the private clinics and nursing homes. Whatever it may be, gradually we could reduce the crude death rate. Crude death rate is mainly because of the infectious disease like cholera, gastroenteritis, and then tuberculosis, most importantly tuberculosis. And most of other diseases like particularly in children, measles, diphtheria, hepatitis, all these problems. We have the National Immunization Schedule, which was introduced full scale from 1985, the primary immunization and most of doses, etc., regularly given to the children. And slowly, after the integration of primary healthcare services in the younger age groups, we had good progress and infant mortality rate. Once upon a time, considered to be 135, but slowly we have got it to less than 40 now because of these modern healthcare services for the mothers and children. So likewise, death rates also. Death rate also slowly reduced. We have treated tuberculosis, particularly diarrhea, cholera, and the number of dysenteries, types of dysenteries, and then plague, one of the most important diseases used to be pandemic. And the modern emerging diseases like the HIV, H1N1 influenza, and then now the corona. You see, one by one, when we pass through these diseases, initially we have to face we have to bear the brunt. The number of deaths for a period of time, gradually we are learning how to control them by means of the public health measures. So today we are able to control to a large extent compared to Western countries the present corona. What do you think? It is because of our far-sightedness and the public health measures. Very in a dedicated manner, we have been following all the public health measures. That's why the spreading of the disease to a large extent we are able to control. But still, the disease is rampant in and around other countries. We are not able to take a drastic action right now because we are much ahead in other countries. But what are the gains we have achieved so far with this lockdown? We just relax because there is an economic depression now. There is no productive work and there is no productivity. There is a financial recession and the country has to face all this economic loss, etc. But our government gave importance to the lives of the people, and so we are still continuing this. We are very fortunate. We have negligible death rate from this corona. So these types of public health measures, where from? We learned from our earlier experience with the disease like swine flu, and now we are applying for this particular disease in an aggressive manner, and we are protecting ourselves. So we have to know about the birth and death rates. So the birth rate, if the birth rate is more in a particular area, where we are missing, what are the measures we have to further take to see that the birth rate is controlled. And then death rates, when death rate comes, the age-wise death rates, particularly in children, infant mortality rate, child mortality rate, reasons are many. There is lack of nutrition, there is a lack of hygiene, etc. So that's why if there is nutritional problem, today we have been introducing the midday meal school meal program and Anganwadi centers. There are nutritional supplementary programs. So this birth and death rates, these two are even in death rates in elderly people. You see, the non-communicable diseases, we are transmission at the rate of, at the point of transition from the infectious disease to non-communicable disease like cancer, diabetes, hypertension, cardiovascular diseases, cancer. These are all non-communicable diseases. And for non-communicable diseases also, we can integrate the primary health services. Some of the lifestyles, change in the lifestyles and metabolic factors, which are to be closely screened from time to time and caution the people to take necessary precautions to control the non-communicable disease also. In that particular aspect, we should know about the birth and death rates and from time to time how they are changing. You see, there are some comparisons. Crude birth rate and crude death rate. As on today, India at a place, you see, about crude death rate in 2012 about 16 and death rate, crude death rate about 7. This 16 is still reduced in the latest figures. There's a lot of improvement and crude birth rate is further reduced. Then if the growth rate is nothing but we express in terms of percentage. Our aim is to see that growth rate should always be less than 1%. We've been trying for it for decades together. Even till today, we could not achieve the 1% growth rate. At present, our growth rate is about 1.4. So, remember the other countries, even including China, China is less than 1%, that is 0.9%, whereas the USA and the other Western countries is 0.5, 0.6, like that. To reach that stage, of course, we have to go a long way. You know, by using the coercion measures, it will always be negative effects, which we have already seen, experienced probably. Your children, you may not be knowing, in 1977, when the suddenly government thought for a period of 4 decades from the independence, Congress was the government, only government, there's no alternative government. And once upon a time, they suddenly realized that how can we improve the socio-economic status of the country, because there's population explosion. Somebody advising them to see that the population control is immediately be implemented and see that population is controlled. So all of a sudden they start implementing this vasectomy program by the Congress government, forcible vasectomy procedures for all the male members, irrespective of their stature, irrespective of the children, irrespective of the age, whether it is useful or not. Quite some they have started. And then ultimately the entire program gone against the government. And in 1977, the ruling government lost the power, and including the Prime Minister herself from Raebareli was defeated because of the coercion. So we should not resort to such coercion measures. And you know, the Janata government came into power in 1977, immediately took up this program, changed its name from Family Planning Program to National Family Welfare Program, where there are no coercion measures. People will be provided extension services and try to convince them that the advantages of family, small family, and how should we follow these temporary family planning methods and permanent family control methods. By convincing them slowly, they have introduced. Not only that, there's so many what are called reformations they brought in the health department, like introduction of primary health care, then barefoot doctors, we call them community health volunteers, primary health care, some village guides as a link between the public people on whom this particular health worker, health guide, or ASHA worker, now we are calling. People have confidence in them because they are locally living. And through them, all the policies they used to implement in villages. So today, every program, out of the program, we are devised for the community. Ultimately, it is going at the front line, cutting edge at the village level, the ANM and number of the ASHA workers, along with other members from the community, like the Panchayat President, Panchayat Secretary, Gram Sevika, an association called the Village Sanitation Committee, Village Health and Sanitation Committee, where all these are people are members, and through them, every component of healthcare, be it rural water supply, the commodities, supply of commodities, and treatment of all national health programs, implementation of national health programs, all are going through this particular link worker from the government to the public, and it has given a lot of dividends for us. So that way we have to control the growth rate, but we should not have any bias over it. But still, whether we are lagging behind from the government side and public health department, or there is no real change in the people and have not really accepted the advantages of small family and all, because fertility is the most important factor for the growth rate. Fertility rate is nothing but during the reproductive age of the women, how many children she can beget, not more than 2 children. And if fertility rate is reduced to 2, at the most 2.1, we've been longing for it for a long time, but we did not reach to the stage. Still, our fertility rate is more than 2.1, and we have not reached our goal. When we reduce our growth rate less than 1% and fertility rate by less than 2.1, by educating the couples, and wholeheartedly they have to accept this program, not that somebody behind them and try to explain them the advantages and stuff. Otherwise, if you have children more than 2, you will be ineligible for contesting an elections. These are all questions which they do not do much sort of desired results until and unless people accept it as the people's program. It is a program should come from their heart itself, and then they should wholeheartedly take up this program. So I think such day has not come yet. The family planning program is still going on because the 2-child family and all, our field workers, our frontline workers go into each house once in 15 days and try to convince them that the advantage of a small family and all. And that should not be the situation. For a long time, we have been doing for the last 3 or 4 decades. How long we can continue like this unless there is sort of enlightenment in the people themselves? If it comes on its own, and it will be a permanent thing. Then the we talked about these demographic. Now we will come to demographic trends in India. Particularly, we are interested in our own country. Demography in the a small interruption because of power failure. So now we have gone through the various stages of demographic cycle, and then population trends as on the planet, as in the world, and now we are going through our own country, particularly India, where we are interested. We should also know about the other countries because there will always be comparison with other countries, and then there may be good practices, best practices in those countries, and we can emulate them in our own country and try to make a progress in that track. So in demography, we have this population status, population size, sex ratio, density, dependency ratio, and then the vital statistics like birth rate, death rate, growth rate, etc. To some extent, we have already covered these topics. And some of the important concepts like age and sex composition. You see, we have today the gender discrimination, particularly the female girls are reducing when compared to male population. For every 1,000 population, particularly in our country, there are about, on an average, only 940. And there are some of the states like Haryana where it is very much less. Once upon a time, it was only 500 compared to male population. And gradually, people have misused. The reason for this is they have misused the provisions given by provided by the government to enact called medical diagnostic pregnancy to save the lives of unmarried mothers, particularly in rural areas, as a safety measure. Government have promulgated this particular act that according to this act, any women can go to a government service center where if she gets pregnancy, her name shall be kept secrecy, and then they can she can have absolutely free of charge this abortion and absolute secrecy. There's nobody can compel the doctor, and it shall be only with the doctor and the patient. That's all. Nobody can influence to know about the name, etc. So that was the act for a long time that was working very well in our country, particularly in rural areas where the poor girls and farmers, the girls of farmers, young-age girls, good-looking girls are surrogated by some of the baniyas, ruffians in the villages, and make them pregnant, and they don't know where to go. And then, if it is known to the family members and society, they will be outcast. And because of that, unfortunately, they used to go to some non-medical person with medical knowledge. They used to conduct abortion totally by introducing some iron rods, etc., sticks, etc. And ultimately, they succumbed to sepsis and used to die. When I was working as a house agent in Srikakulam way back in 1981, I think, 1982, where number of young women used to get admitted in the gynecology department. And in those days, when there was septicemia, there was no very competent antibiotics like this in third generation, second generation antibiotics. We used to use only penicillin or tetracycline or some antibiotic, not very advanced antibiotics. And usually, crystalline penicillin, of course, we used to use those days, and then some people used to respond, and most of the people used to die because of the multi-organ failure and ultimately sepsis. So the government has given a great relief to the society by interest of promulgating this particular act. And thus, the act, after a period of time, gradually misused. See, because by going through the ultrasound test, it is useful for identification of genetic deformities, any body deformities, so that an opinion given by a genetic specialist, and if that child is not wants to survive, then he used to advise the parents to undergo for abortion, and then by taking written consent from them, they were subjected to this abortion. Over a period of time, what happened is the prediction for male babies, and then slowly the infanticide of females, and slowly our ratio, sex ratio was affected, and there is gender inequality. And female children are becoming less and less. For that, ultimately, we have to go and bring another act called PCP Act, where if any abortion is done without a reason, without medical reason, without certification by a genetic specialist, now that is the particular center will be has to face the criminal charges. There are heavy fines and is also imprisonment. Now that is the situation. And another thing is, when you see the age pyramid, what we actually are interested in, middle-aged population and young population particularly, because they are productive. If all the young population has been good education and skill development, and make them independent so that they can work not only in this country, they can go abroad and then earn some foreign exchange for our country. And then the families will be able to survive happily because of the socio-economic status upliftment. Whereas there are a number of children from below 14 years, number of children is more, and then productive population is less, that is from 15 to some 45 or 50 years age group, less population. And then what is used is the dependency ratio. A lot of children, number of children are dependent upon the parents for their survival and for their growth. Whatever they earn is not sufficient. Whereas if the youth, by reducing the birth rate and reducing the children and improve the quality of life, and number of this youth population is swell up, is grown, as shown in the one of the developed countries, I think it is Switzerland, where you have number of young population where they are all productive. And of course, because of the life expectancy increase, there is also old population. Now in developing countries, the old population beyond 65 are also 60, 65. They are not productive. Again, they are dependent on the youth. That is also not, because most of the non-communicable diseases hit at somewhere about 40, 50 years, and then the premature deaths, leaving the family unattended and poverty. And if some people survive, they succumb to complications of non-communicable disease like cerebrovascular accidents, cardiovascular accidents. and then paralysis. So such disease, they are able to survive. But what is the use? They are dependent on their children, young population. So that is the dependency ratio. The dependency ratio above 65 years and below 14 years, that particular group population shall be kept at the control, and the young population, productive population, age group should gradually swell. That is our aim, to study the age pyramids. By studying these age pyramids, we will be able to know what are the countries like Switzerland, developed countries, what sort of methods they are following, how they are able to improve their economically productive age group population. You see, there's a lot of improvement, lot of what should I say, miracles are going on in the medical field, where the integration of primary health care services into the sub-centers and then primary health centers, district hospitals, by providing specialists, and particularly the present government national health protection schemes, particularly by the Honorable Prime Minister, providing 5 lakh rupees as insurance scheme. So by utilizing that money, not for the tertiary care treatment, you see, that money shall properly be implemented in primary health care services. As far as the communicable disease is concerned, there is a national immunization schedule where all the children, said person children, are immunized against these 9 communicable diseases. So you will be able to reduce the infant mortality, and you will infuse confidence in the parents that even there is only one child, yes, this child will survive. This is no question of death, because he has been immunized against all these infections. Likewise, in old age, there is primary healthcare services. For example, you see, you have to change your lifestyle. Well, stop. You should regularly go for exercise, stop drinking alcohol, stop cigarettes, smoking, and then stop eating unhygienic foods, stop eating non-vegetarian foods, stop using oils of animal origin, that is ghee, etc. Naturally, your hypercholesterol will be controlled, your cholesterol will be under control, your sugar will be under control, and going to diabetes and then hypertension and cerebrovascular accidents. And those are the common diseases which incapacitate the person after once it has been established in the person. See, you have to prevent that. Many people after 60 years, they are surviving with a number of stents and coronary heart disease and other disabilities. This is only disability adjusted life years, where you have to look after them as their toys, because they cannot be productive to the community. That's why if you integrate all primary healthcare service, not only for the children, not only for the non-communicable disease, but also non-communicable diseases, by utilizing the large fund, large capital which has been allotted in the budget by the government, shall be utilized by our health department, by our policy makers, by our doctors, so that it will definitely help you have a healthy community where youth will always be very energetic and the number will be more, so that the dependency ratio to a large extent will be controlled. So that is very essential for us. So the sex ratio, of course, even you see when the female population among the youth what are the youth that are available by integrating the primary health care services. You will have productive youth, both male and female. And we have to utilize both of the services. Female shall use to work, male used to work, and female also shall work. You see, as far as the higher learning is concerned, the women are nowhere inferior to male, and in many instances they proved better than they're diligent when compared to, more diligent when compared to male members. Their productivity is very good in some of the fields. On the same lines, in lower ranks, that is, you see, once upon a time, a large number of female workers used to work in slums and other construction activities going on. They used to earn something along with the male member, and it will be useful for their family and uplift their economic status. Nowadays, slowly the female component is reducing from the work, particularly in skill development works and then other non-skill works, labor, whatever it is. Over a period of time, gradually they will also be educated, their children will be educated. So a time comes, all the works which can be done through the developed machinery will be attending. Only thing is, the either women or men who are trained in skill development will be able to operate those machinery. That's all. That is sufficient. Anybody can do it. Female is fair as much as men. There is no difference. That's why we should create an opportunity for the women to work and earn something, so that our per capita income will rise, and then family will have money at their disposal to spend for their health and the education of the children, and live in a better environment, etc. So the same way we have to see now the dependency ratio is varying from 40 to 60%. There are only 40% is productive people, and about 60% they are surviving on these people. How long can we bear this weight, and how long can we pull on? It's not possible. A day will come, society will break. So that's why we should encourage women. We should create an enabling environment for the female to work. Of course, it is to look out of the government. They are doing a number of welfare schemes. I'm sure definitely in the coming future we will have a better environment for female to participate in jobs and try to earn something for the family, and there is improvement of the family economic situation. So density of population is, of course, is very important. If we can density, when adversities about the density, see, cities the density is high, and then villages the density is per square we express in square kilometer. It will be more in cities. Why? The reason being is a lot of migration from the villages to the cities in search of employment, because they have a notion that the cities have better facilities for transport, better schools, better medical services, better housing, better infrastructure facilities, better earning capacity, and then better sort of enjoyment in cities. With that attitude, people are migrating to the villages where the density of population is increasing day by day. And in fact, the entire their dreams are not coming true. Ultimately, they have to settle in a very congested area, what we call as slums today, in a slum where the density of population is very high. In the same city, for instance, you take Visakhapatnam city, we have about 400 slums, identified with the government. Of course, the government is taking a lot of care to provide good infrastructure, supply of potable water, and then, of course, providing some employment also wherever is possible. But in spite of all this, there is overcrowding in slums in the same city. If you take some posh colony where the density is very less, when you go to slums, the density is more, and you know the problems of density where there is no sufficient space in the house. There is an overcrowding with the resultant of spread of communicable disease like tuberculosis. Today, tuberculosis we are not able to control because of this reason. This is one of the most important reasons where the labor community used to settle in these slums, and then they cannot understand about these communicable diseases, particularly tuberculosis, and most of the times they are defaulters of treating people, even though they are identified by the government, by the healthcare workers, they are suffering from tuberculosis, and it has been confirmed by the TB specialists, chest specialists, and start treatment they take only for 1 or 2 months treatment, and as soon as they feel better, suddenly they stop this medicine. Now sometimes it so happens they change the location because their earning capacity is more in elsewhere than compared to that place. And they go there immediately. They stop the treatment because they do not know where to approach, where to go and get the medicines. So like that, we have many resistance developed cases in tuberculosis concerned. So this communicable disease is again a problem regarding the density of population, where slums are increasing. Where this is this particular graph where the population rise in cities, which is somewhere started here and gradually. And today, a day may come almost the population in cities and villages may become almost equal. If we take, for instance, Madhya Pradesh, in Maharashtra, the urban population is more than rural population. You might be knowing the name of Dharavi slum. It's one of the biggest slums in Southeast Asian region, where there are crores of people are living there, and that's the place with a lot of density and then overcrowding, resulting number of diseases. And even today, when you inquire about this COVID-19, it is spreading in that particular slum. People health department is struggling to control the particular infection. So the urbanization somehow we try to discourage. We should try to discourage. By what? By not denying them the facilities which we are experiencing or getting in urban areas. We have to provide those facilities in rural areas also. Build good infrastructure, have hospitals, have good schools, standard. The government has to take up this particular activity. Of course, nowadays we have Navodaya schools, and for exclusively for the girl children there are schools, and they are not sufficient. Still more we have to improve. And another thing is small scale industries will be started in villages itself, where people from villages, there is no need to go for PhDs and post graduations and this computer engineers and software engineers. There are many things which are also necessary by improving the skill development. For instance, you need a plumber, you need an electrician, you need some small engineering works in our place itself. We don't need a very specialist like software engineer. Do we really need them? Their need is very little, only in big concerns and multinational companies, and where in metropolitan cities, etc. What about the other towns and cities? Government should think about it, and the skill development programs should be taken in a long way and then in a large way, so that all the youth will have some employment opportunity and generation of these finances and economy, so that their standard of living will definitely will improve. Then family size, of course, we have already talked about it. We are two and we should have two, that's all. If you maintain the growth rate, population growth rate below 1 and then fertility rate just less than 2.1 or around 2.1, you are sure to reach the zero population growth, and definitely our population will get stabilized so that you will have long-term plans. The tragedy in our country is when we plan for about 1 billion people, it was very disheartening to see at the end of the 10 years, that is census, in the 11th year when you go and count the population, instead of 1 billion, we had 1.2 billion. You see, 200 million people are always, we are not able to control the birth rate, and then the growth rate, we are not able to control it. So always the whatever the additional production of commodities and essential commodities, necessities for the population for 1 billion people. But unfortunately, whatever the growth, financial growth, or whatever the growth we have achieved by our sheer strain and sheer work and diligence, that part, the development part, is been consumed by this extra additional population. So that is the problem for our country. Otherwise, we would have been #1 country in this entire world. So the key for this particular development is somehow we have to see that our population should get stabilized. The modest estimation is by 2025, we will reach about 1.5 billion or so, more than China population. So even at that stage, we can stabilize the population, then whatever the resources that are available on this land of India is sufficient to take care of them. But there is no guarantee that our growth rate will get stabilized even in 2025 and stabilize the population, number of population in our country. That is the problem. That is, it is there with the youngsters, economists, and progressive doctors like you, because you work in the community and see that it is one of your most important responsibility towards the community. The literacy, of course, education. Literacy will always improve the socio-economic status, and it has a direct effect on fertility. If female population are educated, the fertility is reduced. The wholehearted acceptance of the small family norm, which will start from the female population, because they will take it to their heart. You see, a postgraduate, a lady working, studying in a university or higher education, nationally will have late marriage, and by that time they will have maturity in their mind, and they will not try to have a number of children. They will both wife and husband will plan in such a way that they will have only one son or one daughter. Even daughter is also not. They will take it as equal. There is no discrimination in sex, and like that, they wholeheartedly participate in this program, where adopt this national family welfare and family planning program. That is the advantage with the literacy. Of course, life expectancy is certainly desired. Nobody say that life expectancy is not necessary since the older people are, it is only life adjusted life expectancy, and they are becoming burden of the society. No, that idea shall definitely changed in the youngsters and at this age, where if the aged population are within their good health and able to support themselves and able to see their self-care, and of course up to 65 they are to some extent they are also productive. For instance, today we are seeing in even medical colleges people, doctors who are retired long ago at the age of 60 years. They are still working, they have the possibility of working till they attain the 70 years of age, and they have a productive life, they are earning, they are useful for the society. So on the same lines, not that everybody should become professors, or we can also have skilled workers, people who have skill with them can work till 65 years and 70 years and contribute something to the society without becoming burden to the society. So if that is the understanding by our particularly medical community when it comes to demography, though it is the responsibility of the government to achieve the demographic dividends, in the sense that the reduction of population and what are the population is there to keep them in good health, which is the responsibility of the public health specialists and doctors, then definitely we can have this demographic dividends, and our country will go a long way, and we can definitely reach the stage of our development, and who knows, we will become even superpower in coming years. So this is all what I wanted to tell you about demography and family planning. Of course, this is a very big chapter, a number of topics. It is a conglomeration of sociology and health put together. And sociology, of course, we have social work and sociology department, social scientists. On the same lines, we have the doctors who are trained in public health specialists. Both of them work together, definitely to achieve a healthy population for our society. Thank you. I don't know how can I answer your doubts, queries, or questions, but I don't think this meeting may not last long. Soon we will meet in our classrooms, so that if there are any doubts with you, please keep with you, and then when I take the next class, we try to ask. Thank you. Time is going.